One thing my dad always said was do the right thing. In any situation, whether it came with a customer or dealing with our staff, is just do the right thing. And that's what I've tried to do. Whether it's purchasing a new vehicle, whether it be repairing their current vehicle, whether it be getting accessories for the vehicle they have, it's just being able to provide our customers with a first-class experience and a pain-free experience. You know, that's something that we've always done here and something we're very proud of. That's a part of who we are every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to an edition of the Southeastern Sports Network podcast. Robbie Rhodes here again with you this week. It's week 8, talking Lion football, talking Lion athletics, joined by normal guests, or normal hosts this week, Alan Waddell, Mark Willoughby, and Harris Beal. Our special guests today, part of our interview segments, brought to you by Gateway Ford in Ponchatoula, our former Lion football players, Merrick Lanaux and Brian Babin. Guys, thank you all so much for being with us today. It means a lot. We've been trying to get this thing off the ground, and I think I say this with all sincerity, when we get people like you two on the show, it adds so much validity to what we're trying to do, and the history of this program going all the way back, and then in the recent restart since 2003. So we really appreciate you guys coming tonight.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, fellas.
Guys, I'll start, and we're just kind of bounce around. We're just going to talk and have like a nice little time, just talking memories, talking great things, and your thoughts on the program and everything about Lion football that you guys want to talk about it. You know, we're here to talk about it with you guys tonight. My thing for you guys is like, I'm gonna start it is like, and I'm gonna, I guess we'll start Merrick. When we kind of ask a question, we'll go to you first, maybe, and then Brian. Let's just direct it to you. That way we kind of keep it as kind of as easy flowing as possible. You know, when a team wins a championship, I think that there's always this, like, that team, that group of players, they have that ring or they have that memory, and that's a championship team. But in my viewpoint, I've always thought this about college athletics. It's more than that to me, because it's about a foundation of people that over time develop that championship. Like, to me, look, the seas were really rough with Lion football in 05 and 06 before you guys kind of took that helm. And so you never won that conference, but y'all laid this foundation, in my opinion, that stabled the ship with Coach Lucas to build on what came after that. And so, like, to me, I always feel like guys and teammates that you guys had, when the Lions won that championship in 2013, yeah, that team had a great year and they had the success and they got it done on the field in those games. But the foundation you guys laid is part of what got it there. I guess I hope y'all understand what I'm trying to get at with that.
Absolutely.
But, like, do y'all think about that? Like, to say, look, do y'all feel that, to say, hey, look, I know you're Lions, we're all Lions, but like, we got here because of maybe a kid made a decision to come here because they watched me play a game as a recruit that led to that championship. Just talk about that, Merrick. We'll start with you about what that meant and the foundation I feel like y'all laid, because to me, football started in 03 and then there was a restart in 07 almost of that little interior thing. So Merrick, just kind of your thoughts on that a little bit.
So, obviously we knew it was going to be tough sledding coming back in 03. Our recruiting class was 05. So, Mummy was a landmark hire for the program. I mean, very, very flashy hire. Being a receiver, I mean, he caught my attention from the get-go. Obviously, probably the same with Brian. And when he left, it was a very uncertain year that summer, because we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what coach was coming in. We didn't know if the same system was going to be in place. So when we got there in 05, it was very uncertain times. And, just to put kind of a emphasis on how uncertain things actually played out in that time frame, me and Brian are actually the only two guys out of our recruiting class that stayed 5 years and graduated. I mean, it was a carousel of guys coming in from Georgia and guys transferring and guys quitting. I mean, it was just a very unstable 4 or 5 years. And in the meantime, we had a hole to dig out of financially. I mean, we had to play 2 or 3 D1s a year, FBSs. Sorry, Alan, FBS schools. And, most of them Power Fives that were top 25 in the country. So not only were we trying to figure out our identity as, are we going to be this air raid team like Mummy brought in, or are we going to go a different route? We also had to get our teeth kicked in the process, just getting killed by these big Power Five programs. all in the hopes of making some money for the program, getting some recognition nationally for the program. And those really were tough games, tough times. But looking back on it now, man, I mean, those are moments we cherish. Playing Ole Miss when they were fifth in the country. Playing Texas Tech when Graham Harrell and Michael Crabtree were there. Matt Forte with Tulane. I mean, we played some really big name marquee programs in that time frame. And like you said, as far as laying a foundation, we still play those games, obviously. But in the early days, man, being a 2-year-old program, that was tough years, and keep in mind too, you guys know how it is with FCS programs. I mean, we just don't have the depth. So we're going in playing these games. I get a concussion at Texas Tech. Not only am I a starting receiver, but I'm a starting deep snapper. I'm a punt returner. I'm also on the punt team. So, that's the type of things people don't realize about FCS programs is a lot of the starters, the depth isn't there like the FBS programs. We've got to play multiple positions, and it's just it makes for a long year. Injuries, all that stuff combined makes it really tough in those early years for us to really think about championships in those years. Obviously, that would have been great, but I think we all kind of had the long picture in mind in those years, and it played out well. I think it took 10 years to finally get a conference title, and I don't know what to compare that to, but I think that's pretty great, given how young the program is and what all we had to do to get there. So,
yeah, absolutely. Brian, your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on what Merrick's saying, you go from Hal Mumme to Dennis Rowland, then to Coach Lucas, and you're in there battling, FBS schools at first, and then you're trying to figure out kind of your identity as a team. And then for us, first year as a starter, we go 2-9. Next year we get a little bit better. We're 5-7. And then I think the next year after that, we're 6-5, playing for a shot at conference championship.
Right.
And injury bug hits us, whatever it may be. But you, like you're saying, you don't win that championship, so you don't leave your actual legacy, right? I won a state title in high school in baseball. My name's on a sign. My little kid will get to see that when he goes to the park and stuff like that. But I think Merrick and I talk about it a lot. It's kind of when we had that good year, 6-5, a pretty good run, we really exposed the program in a really good way. And we kind of felt like, hey, look, Coach Lucas got some good things going. He got a couple of guys coming back next year. They hopefully can make a little run, and it didn't happen, unfortunately. But we knew if we could get, nothing against him, but if we get the right guy in here, this place can be special. So, obviously when Ron stepped in, had a couple of transfers and a couple of key guys come in and play, man, they started winning some conference championships. So, for me, that's kind of being that guy to, hey, look, rough start, 2 coaches, rough start. Coach Lucas comes in there, and then we kind of took it and ran with it. Got better every year. It's kind of rough right now when you see them at 0-7. You kind of have those flashbacks, right? Because they're not a bad team, right? But I can guarantee you they're having the same talks that we had. Man, we're 5. You pull up a cut tape of 5 plays, man, and you're right there. You're right there. You're just not making those plays. And sometimes it falls like that. Yep. And that kind of happened a lot whenever we were coming up. But just knowing that we left the program in a great spot, it's something I'm extremely proud of. So,
no doubt. Mark, go ahead.
I appreciate you guys joining us. Obviously, been dying to have you guys on. And one of the things, back up just a little bit. You talked about obviously a new program, 3 head coaches, that sort of thing. But you guys had to make a decision to come here. And I know both of you guys were pretty highly recruited. You had some. Merrick, you were very talented coming out of high school. Brian, I know you were as well. And so I know you probably had options, and you chose to come to Southeastern, a new program. Obviously, Hal Mumme making a big splash in 03 and 04. But just talk about that decision, because that's again, new program, going into a tough conference in the South. I know you were independent there the first couple of years, but just talk about that decision for each one of you.
Yeah. So for me, several things. Number one, I'm Hammond born, Hammond raised, Hammond High School.
Live right across the street.
lived across the street my whole life. Still live across the street to this day. You know, I mean, this area, this city, I mean, it obviously holds a very special place in my heart. And that was at the forefront of my decision. You know, being a historical deal that the program was coming back after a hiatus, was it 25 years, 28 years? So I wanted to be a part of that. You know, that's something that was extremely important to me. I had a couple of D1 offers, FBS offers, sorry. And one of them was Hal Mummy. I mean, Hal Mummy was actually my first offer in high school. He offered me my junior year to come to Southeastern, and I was fired up. Being a receiver, being in Hammond, receivers were like Hollywood superstars, man, for Mummy. Like you couldn't touch a receiver in practice. They might as well have been quarterbacks with red jerseys on. That's how special receivers are in Mummy's offense, right? So I was fired up about that, man. Like it was a dream come true to play at home and to play in a pass heavy offense like that. It was a no brainer. Then when he took the New Mexico State job, you know, I had a decision to make. And ultimately, yeah, playing, you know, in a bigger conference and in front of more fans. And at the time, it was kind of between Southeastern, which we didn't really know what was going to happen after Mummy left, or go to Las Cruces, New Mexico with, you know, with Mummy and his staff and man, weighing the pros and cons. Like I said, Hammond was just too special for me to pass up on the shot of a historical deal possibly for the city and have my name attached to that. So, yeah, that kind of was ultimately the two things that were, you know, the deciding factors for my decision were being a local kid and wanting to catch a lot of balls, you know, and at the time, look, how Mummy put us on the map as a team that threw the ball. And he got me here, you know, he got Brian here. Brian's brother came before him. So, I mean, it's looking back, it's, you know, we could have won more games. We could have had things go a little different, go better for us. But ultimately, I mean, we both had great careers, and I wouldn't change it for the world, you know. And on top of that, man, you make friends for life when you stay local. I mean, me and Brian live, I don't know, 30 miles apart, but we still talk every day, you know. And I'm sure people still have that in other schools that recruit nationwide, but it's just something about staying local, man. And meeting local friends and lifelong friends, staying connected with the program. If I left and went to New Mexico, I would not at all be involved with that program today. I mean, I can say that without a doubt. Maybe make a game or two every couple of years, but that's another thing I cherish, man, is still being here, still being a part of the community, and still seeing how I can stay involved. And talk to some of the kids that are playing now and tell them what we had to go through to get where they are today. I mean, that's all stuff that's, you know, just as important to me as the days we played, is staying involved, and we enjoy it.
Brian?
Yeah, no, for me, it was, you know, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I didn't have a ton of options. The recruiting process was a little rough for me. We did kind of air it out in high school. So football was always my passion. And then when all the Southland Conference coaches came in, Stoker came in, McGee came in from McNeese, who's my guy, Coach Thomas came in from Nichols. None of them wanted to talk to me, didn't even ask to see me, nothing. And then obviously the shuffle with Coach Mummy and Coach Lucas, Coach Mummy and Coach Rowland, I ended up getting offered from Southeastern. I was like, hey, look, they're close enough to come home, far enough to get away from me. My friends and family can come watch me play. We still eat at my mama's every Sunday. And I could try to kick their ass, the coaches that didn't recruit me. So, can we say ass, Alan?
Yeah, you can say that.
And to touch on that, too.
It's our podcast.
To touch on that, too, Brian was he was a really good pitcher, man. Like you said, they won state. He had options to go play baseball at LSU. And that was, you know, another thing he had to deal with. I have a feeling that in my heart, I talked him into choosing football at the All-Star game in Baton Rouge. My brother had a little role in that too. My brother may have given him a little encouragement after the game, right?
Merrick sneaking in blondes to his dorm room His
Just to be
brother,
just to be clear, it was one blonde. It's my wife.
his brother's giving me 6 packs of a beer after the game. So yeah, they pretty much sold me on Hammond. It was an easy call.
Yeah.
But you ended up top 5, top 10 in just about every passing
Yeah,
category in school history.
I was about to
Go ahead, Al.
I was about to say that, Mark. I mean, I think what 08, 09, I was kind of looking at it, almost 6,000 yards passing, 50 touchdowns. You know, Brian had an incredible run here playing quarterback for Southeastern, and I know there was some air raid before you guys, but it wasn't all pass heavy. You know, when you guys were here, it was a little more balanced. We had some good backs. I mean, I think back to Jay Lucas. He was a tremendous player over at Redemptorist High School. I think he signed with Texas A&M and then ended up coming back here to Southeastern and playing. So some good players on those teams. Probably just not enough players, you know, to win a conference championship. But you guys certainly did a lot of really good things here. But you know, I wanted to talk about the fact that I know, Merrick, you made a comment to us earlier about how a lot of the former players were back this weekend for homecoming and how much they enjoyed that. And you know, I think one of the big things that we're missing is there was such a big gap from 85 to 2003 is the fact that now those guys that are your class, that are my age, that we're all kind of the same age, you know, we're at the point now where we're in our careers where we can start, you know, donating to the university, help grow the university. I mean, do you guys see that vision as far as, you know, with those guys you played with, getting them back here and getting more involved? We know you guys are already, but, you know, helping grow that kind of that charge as we continue to grow this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, I think it really just takes getting those guys back here. And sometimes it's a hiatus for a few years. You graduate, you think you're done with football, you go back home, or you go to work or whatever. But ultimately, guys that I see at Friendship Circle that hadn't been here in a few years, that have not been back since they graduated, everyone I talk to, man, that comes back for the first time is, man, this is so awesome. I miss it. I miss seeing all these boys. I miss seeing, you know, just the local downtown atmosphere of people here. Like, I miss it. I want to come back. And, you know, the tailgates we do and the involvement we try to keep up with, it should be a draw for players, especially seniors, to look at and say, okay, when I'm done, if I'm not going to the league, which everybody in college thinks they are, but when they don't, it should be somewhat encouraging to know that there's still this fraternity of guys that are going to, you know, still be here. And it's a lifelong deal, man. And it's kind of their choice whether or not they want to keep participating. But we're there, and it's always going to be an option. If you want to come back, Southeastern's made it pretty clear that they'll welcome anybody that's ever been affiliated with a program with open arms. And I mean, that's huge, man. I think it really gives one more incentive for kids to come to a program like us that's such a tight knit, you know, city community. It doesn't have the big urban feel that an LSU has. It just still feels very intimate here. You know what I mean? Still feel like everyone remembers your name. You still see guys that you played with. You still see guys that came and watched you. And that's something that is important, man. And it should be important for guys that give 5 years of their life on the field, at practice, in the weight room, to feel like they're valued. When they do come back here, that's important. Making those guys feel like, hey, we appreciate what you did, even if you didn't win a conference championship. You know, everybody that plays and every year that you played is important for the program. Every year that the program keeps coming back and every year that we play is another successful year for the city of Hammond and the university. And, you know, that's what we talk about when guys come out to the tailgate and they come back is you know, look, you gave your life for 5 years to this program. Come back and let's see what Southeastern can also do for you now that you're done. Show how much they appreciate you. But just stay involved, man. Stay involved. And, you know, like I said, gives the guys that are playing now something to look forward to when they're done.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It's definitely a local approach, family atmosphere. But like you said, Alan, there is a little disconnect there, right? So you have the 18-year gap with the older guys who help bring the program back. They're still out there every Saturday, every home game. They travel. You know, they're extremely involved. And then to have younger guys like, you know, Merrick and I, I think it just, we've talked about it. We've got to be able to help do some things, whether it's just just reaching out to guys we play with or getting talking to the guys before they leave the program, say, hey, here's how you can get involved. Just some things to stay connected. I think, you never know who you run across, especially in the position like Merrick's in sales, I'm in sales. So, it's a great network to have. But definitely need to get the younger guys more involved. I know the older guys have done a tremendous job, but we're all ears on how to help do that. I know Merrick's been obviously living down the street. We've tried to get a lot more guys our age out there. But I think, a little bit has to do with winning some ball games, wanting to be a part of it, a playoff game, home playoff games, not just homecoming, but it is good to see those guys. We know it's a good time, but I know we're all kind of open, all ears on how to help, but definitely need to do something.
Harris, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that, there with previous coaches there was a disconnect with local recruiting, and I think now you're seeing Coach Selfo really, really low, recruiting locally, and I think that helps with, former player engagement and coming to a friendship circle and being just within 100 miles to where they're not living in California, they're not in Texas, they're not in Florida,
Right.
but they're right here in the state, which helps. And they a lot of people that are from Louisiana but aren't from the Hammond area, they don't realize how great Hammond really is until you spend 5 years there. But when you are recruited locally, it's more of a reason to even, stay in Hammond after you graduate. And I think you're starting to see a lot more graduates and former players live within 100 miles, which is really nice and which helps recruiting. I know, Merrick, you're my neighbor and one of the Dukes of Hammond. So, it's always good to see more people get involved, and especially former athletes. And I think you're right, Merritt, because when they were cooking for the former players, a lot of those guys from early on in the program, when they brought it back, they were looking around kind of like starstruck, not realizing that all this even existed. Again, I was talking to a few of them, and they had no idea that tailgating was really a thing in Friendship Circle, and now I think they're kind of hooked. I think they want to keep coming back and keep doing it, which is great. Because we definitely need more of that. We need more people, and and I think one thing is that we were 0-6 going to that homecoming game, and you wouldn't know it from that atmosphere that we had tailgating, and I think that. I think sometimes the record may not even matter. Sometimes that if they have a good experience before the game, they're going to go inside the stadium and enjoy the game, whether it's a team making a run for a conference championship or also one that is struggling to get that first W. But I really didn't have a question. I do know that after all the football games, I always tend
Great
to
commentary, Harris.
yeah,
That was great.
I do. I do. I
Nice
will say
filibuster.
I always end up on Merrick's back patio after football games, and I tell you
Patio is
what,
dangerous.
we need a podcast one day where Brian and Merrick can just tell 3 or 4 hours worth of stories, because I
We
won't
can do
say a
that.
word. I won't say a word, and they'll just go story after story after story, and it's the greatest entertainment ever.
Well, we can't let them out, and without talking about Brian. We talk about all the time the 24-point comeback at Texas State, probably the greatest comeback. Maybe it's one of the best in FCS history. Huh, Mark? That thing was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
We're down 24 with 8 minutes left.
Yeah.
No onside kicks, and come back and win that game on the road. That has to be a wild memory for you guys.
Yeah, it was something, man. This was
Mark's pulling out the highlights.
Let's see him. Here we go.
Hang on, here we go. Let's go. Let's play him here.
That was
This
before
is
HD.
just starting the second half. You guys, I think we're down 4-13, I believe, at halftime. You get a fumble.
24-13. Yeah, I think they hung a few more points in the third, but Texas State was a good team that year too, man. They had a really good quarterback. Who was that quarterback, Brian?
Bradley George. Picked to win the league.
Bradley George.
And we had
He was
never
a minor
beaten him to that
baseball
point.
guy. Yeah.
And wasn't he like 27 years old?
Yeah, he played in the minor leagues.
Yeah,
Yeah, played in the
that's right.
minors. Yeah, he was a really good player. But man, we had won. Let's see, it was South Dakota State the week before. We had to go up there and play in the Dome, and that was a tough loss, first conference game, and not looking good in the fourth quarter. Here we go. Yeah, so 13-30. They still hung a few more on us.
You guys get a Jasper Ducksworth get
Jasper,
the run here.
We had Jasper and we had Zeke. Had a little thunder and lightning with those two. But man, we had a great receiving core too. We had Andre Pryor there.
Probably the most underrated receiving core. Everybody talks about the guys the last few years and that sort of thing. This receiving core was very deep, talented, and very underrated.
Little jump right there. Jump pass.
Thank you, Brian.
No, I can. I definitely remember this one, man. It's definitely a special one for me. I do always remember Robbie on going into the end zone on our locker room.
Oh yeah,
like a 3rd and 17 or 4th and 17. I throw up a prayer to Merrick, and he comes down with it, and my guy is just giving it to the ref.
No, it's still a catch. There's no doubt.
And I'm like, look at man.
Sometimes when you play Texas teams in the Southland, you got to make sure they're not.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Giving them the home cooking.
Yeah, I think we were 0-12 against Texas State all time coming into this game. So
I forgot about all this speed option we used to run here with Brian. I forgot he was such a mobile.
That's game speed, Alan. We
fake a punt near midfield, and they go in and make it 44-20. And they're warming up the backup quarterback. I do remember that.
I do.
They had the worst punt formation I've ever seen.
We'll see it here in a minute. You'll see it here in a second.
Hey, on top of that, so Simi Yarborough was at the game this past weekend. And that's the first thing we talked about. He pulled me aside. He said, "You remember Texas State at halftime? Him and Brian got into it. Now he started jawing at Brian just to throw the ball up. He's like, we're open, we're all open." And it was it was a tumultuous half, man.
It was the end of the half. We're on like our own 30-yard line, and they called a Hail Mary. And obviously, I cannot throw that far. And, I didn't want to throw a stupid pick because I didn't want to have to make a tackle. And obviously, the ends rush up. So I just kind of throw it away. We go in the half, and he just called me out for it.
That was the first touchdown of the comeback right there.
Yep, that's it. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he comes out and fumbles on the first play of the half, and I think he thought I was going to chew his ass. But I was like, "Hey, look, we're good, brother. Let's go get this thing."
So look, that was the first touchdown. And then we had to score three times. To get 3 2-point conversions.
Yes,
we had to get 3 straight 2-point
conversions. They put the backup quarterback in.
There were no onside kicks, no turnovers. Here's the block punt, 7-yard punt formation. We get this block punt, but that was the only really negative. Basically, defense stopped them. We scored. Got 2-point conversions.
Was Robert Alford in on that block?
No, I don't think he played that year.
Yeah, he was out this year.
Yeah, he did.
He played this year. He may have.
Yeah, he played this year. All right, so we're coming down for the second score. I'm sure how much time is left, but at this point, we're still almost just thinking, let's pad our stats a little bit. Let's each try to catch a touchdown or
there's Simi.
Get a little more yards for the stat line.
What a ball that was!
Hey, great ball.
Looked off the safety to the left.
Look at that back shoulder right there.
There's Chris Wilson. We forgot all about
this
Chris
wide
Wilson.
receiver core was next level. Wow,
we had a stacked wide receiver.
Merrick and Chris Wilson knew, hey, look, I'll take a shot. I will take a shot. We'll go back shoulder or we'll throw one up. If somebody else catches it, though, that's it. Like, Merrick, you give up a pick, I'm throwing it to Chris from here on out. All right. Like, I don't care what you got to do. Don't let them.
I forgot that Andre Pryor was on that team. He's like the number 4 receiver, and he was really good.
Yeah, man. He was
a great player, man.
He was a great player.
He was out there like barbecuing chicken or something this week.
Yeah, he was out there this past weekend. Mm-hmm.
There was a fourth down.
That was fourth down, yeah.
Yeah, that was a fourth down. I forgot about that.
Jasper jumps in there.
I remember when Simi got here, I said, man, he was young. I said, Mark, this Simi Yarborough kid's going to be good. He said, you should see his rap videos.
That's right, yeah.
I think he
was a rapper.
Yeah, he made Brian famous.
A little penalty.
There's a rap song that has a verse with Brian in it. I was a little jealous I didn't make the song, but I have to look that one up.
Look at that, Alan. Another speed option.
The speed option.
Simi. Was that Simi on the speed option here?
Yeah, that Todd right there.
Defensive end has got to respect my speed. He's got to.
you attacked inside shoulder, then you commit and just popped it out there.
Now, this is OT, and look, if you'll see where we start our drive, I actually have a crucial holding penalty against me in OT.
Well, I think
and
that
we
was. I
start
think this
off
was like
that
the last play of
drive,
regulation or
and
something here.
it's at like 2nd and 20 when we start OT. So wasn't a good start when we got the ball.
Look at a young Allen right there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
A lot
man.
more hair there, Bubba.
Coin toss is always crucial here. Yeah.
We lose the coin toss. Now, if you notice, we're way back there.
That's right. Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
Chris gets a completion, and I think we back up. That's because I had a holding on the play before. So
There it
Brian
is.
said, I'm going
Here's
to give
the
him a
catch.
chance and throw it up to him.
Look at
There's
Rob.
Matt Sullivan over there.
There he is.
There's Robbie. There's Robbie. There's what you were
See
talking
Robbie
about.
giving the signal?
Had to do it. It's funny. We still laugh about the same thing other people laugh about to this day.
So we make the extra point.
Most
Jeff
important
Turner hit
play
it.
of the
Jeff
game.
Turner.
Turner.
Yep. They scored on the first play on the corner out.
Yeah.
And I am on the field because he missed the extra point and a field goal earlier in the game. And I'm in this guy's ear letting him know that he's about to miss this thing. Because he was like, get off the field.
All right, listen, but this is what I'm sure a lot of players and stuff don't realize though. Whenever you watch this highlight, I just want you to watch the guy under the goalpost, full sprint.
First of all, he
Tell me
didn't
who
catch
that
this ball. Watch a little juggle here Robbie gives us.
Robbie said no.
Here we go,
Robbie said
watch.
no.
Here we go. Here we go. Watch,
He's
watch.
right there. He's giving it to him. Oh, yeah.
Get a juggle.
Okay, look.
All right, now watch Robbie come out underneath.
Watch the
goalpost.
vertical
Here he
leap.
goes. Here he
Oh,
goes.
Doing
Right
it
there.
early.
Yes, indeed, Robbie.
Yeah, that was special, man. That really was a special game.
Unbelievable game that was. 24 points down.
Yep.
51-50. I remember Lucas was like crying after the game. Look, there he is.
Yeah, I know.
We all were, man. That was unbelievable.
Yeah, that was a good one, man. That felt good. Definitely.
Especially when you look and see what
Big
Texas
line.
State's doing today. I mean, look, they're proof of what this program can do. You know,
Yeah, that's a good point.
I know it's Texas football, and I know that their program has a little bit more history than us, but I mean, they're making waves in FBS now. I mean, they are. They're knocking off some big programs. And, you know, that was our 6th year, that game right there. And we went in there and did that to them, you know, and we have the potential. This program has the potential to do exactly what they're doing. I mean,
That's a great segue.
Yeah. Anybody that keeps up with football, man, can look at their program and what they're doing. And no question, we have the ability to do the same thing. No question.
I want to ask you to expand on that because what do you think the future of this program is? I mean, right now, 0-7, it's a tough year. You know, we can talk about that all day, but you know, over the long haul, you guys obviously are in that age. You're out, you're working, making money, coming back, giving back to the university. 10, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road, when you guys are some of the older guard before football was dropped that are now coming back, where do you see this program in 20 years?
So a few years ago, I probably would have had a different answer for you because transfer portal and the NIL stuff, it's all so new. You know, I'm an optimist by nature. I try to be optimistic about things. It's hard to say, man. The transfer portal is tough for SES programs. It's tough. And hopefully they can get some kinks ironed out to where we don't get turned into, you know, a junior college level program for football. I mean, because we're not meant to be used as a stepping stone. That's not what FCS programs are meant to be used for. We're Division I football. We play Division I games. We play Power 5 teams. We are every bit as capable of winning those games with our starters as any other games on the schedule. I mean, look at LSU versus Grambling this year. And that first quarter of that game, you're telling me the starters of Grambling can't play against LSU? I mean, the starters on Southeastern's team could play anywhere in the country. I mean, they could.
We're seeing that now.
It's a depth deal, and there's no such thing anymore as young teams. You know, you can't look at a team and say, we're young, we're sophomores and freshmen, we're going to be great next year because
they might not be back.
Yeah, you just don't know. I mean, you don't know who's going to go on the portal. You don't know. It's just a very uncertain deal, and that scares me a bit. But again, being an optimist, you know, I don't see this community letting the investment that, you know, the people from the original group that brought back the team in 05 and the people that are heavily invested now. we're going to do what it takes to keep this thing going. We've got a big project with the state that the money's earmarked. We're just waiting on the red tape to clear to get that going. I mean, Alan knows more about that than anybody. But those are the things that we got to do to keep up, facility improvements, marketing, things that you have to do to stay relevant. Really curious to see how the transfer portal stuff works out for FCS programs. If nothing changes, I don't know, man. I would hope that we can just weather that storm and figure out how to beat it. But, at this point, we just got to do what we can. And that's invest in money, invest in time, and just staying involved and just doing what we can to keep the program going. So.
Yeah, I think we're still in good hands with Coach Selfo, man. He's so well connected and respected in the state of Louisiana. Everybody's trying to figure out this portal deal with FCS. So, it's not just us, right? So everybody's trying to figure it out. Let's go in there, beat I think we still got all 3 in-state schools, right? So let's beat them, get a head up on recruiting, and just kind of go from there. I mean, we're going to be okay. Frank's going to get us back. It's
I think it's arguably
right there.
I think you can arguably say that we were hit as hard by the portal as anybody in FCS football.
Oh, no question.
I think
year,
I think
sure.
you can say that. I mean, Mark, what do we do the math? Is it 8 or 9 guys that are starting at other programs?
Yeah, it's Jack Henderson, Zy Alexander, Dom Serapiglia, who may be the most underrated loss of all.
Gage,
in the middle of the offensive line, Gage Larvadane,
Bryce Cage,
Darius Harry.
Harry. There's a few. A couple are at FCS programs, but still, I mean, it's 8 or 9 guys that were impact type players on this roster last year on here. So,
and if you look back at, funny that a WAFB came out, I think today actually, with a documentary about Cecil Collins. Remember Cecil the Diesel?
Oh yeah,
absolutely incredible.
Transfer to
so
McNeese.
A guy like that, he is a once in a generation talent, right? I mean, unbelievable running back, could play anywhere in the country. He should have played 20 years in the league. That's how good he was. Guys like him that got in trouble at his level had no choice but to go to McNeese. I mean, that was it.
Yeah, those days are over.
They're done, and the landscape has completely changed.
It's the opposite.
Look at us,
right? Yeah, exactly.
Just look at us. I mean, just call it like it is. The odds of us getting a Brian Bennett or a Cole Kelly, that's hard. Those days are probably over. And that's hard to say, but
that I would like to think that the NCAA or whatever body needs to get involved to figure out what to do as far as what rules need to change, what needs to change to keep that side of football alive, to help programs like us and to help the FCS level in general. I mean, because again, the goal and the ultimate dream would be to pull off what Texas State has pulled off. That would be the dream, right? Now that's a long road, and who knows if that'll ever happen. But
I don't know if that's the dream.
It could be, man. Hey, look, 30,000 people in Hammond going crazy at Strawberry City.
No, I agree with that point. But we've talked about this a lot though. I would rather be a big dog in FCS than go and try to compete to go in the New Orleans Bowl. I just feel like we can do that here. I mean, one of the great things that Coach Selfo has done is he's put us in a position, not this year, but in previous years where we've been able to go to James Madison, go to Montana, go to some of these venues. Yeah, Easter, like we've seen now. Talking about like back when you guys played, we would go play those Power 5 programs and we'd see that, but we didn't see the upper echelon of the FCS. Right. We have done that in the last 5 years. So, to go and be a consistent player every year in the playoffs, which we've been, in the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 years, opportunity to host playoff games. And I think a national championship in Hammond and at the FCS level was so much of a pipe dream, back in 2010, 2009, but we've literally been right there. Like we're not that far away is I guess the point. I mean, again, you look at what we're doing this year and you say, oh man, y'all are crazy. But I mean, we've seen it. We've seen what it looks like. And And I think that's one thing that Coach Selfo has done is put us in the opportunity. Like next year, we're going to play South Dakota State at home. We're going to play Eastern Washington at home. He's put us in some of these games where we're playing other national brands and have an opportunity to expand on that.
Guys, one more thing for you. I think Merrick hit it. You know, when you play in this community where they cherish, and every college cherishes their football program or their athletics, really, but just, you know, you guys, I mean, and this is real life stuff for us because we're around it so much as you are, but like there's people, you know, whether they're students at one time now or adults that's like put you guys in lumps with guys through the years. I'm going back since '03, right? Like people, you talk about great line wide receivers, like, you know, oh, well, Merrick Lanaux's in there. Well, Semi Yarborough's in there. Well, Jeff Smiley's in there. Austin Mitchell, right? I mean, Brian Babin, it's Brian Babin. It's Brian Bennett. It's Cole Kelly and it's Chase and Virgil. That's like these four quarterbacks that were just here. I mean, y'all made memories for people. I mean, that'll last forever. Y'all are standout guys that this community and these fans will just they have memories of, and you're standing out as part of a collective group of guys that had great success here, played well here. You know, Merrick, my memory for you, it was just one play, but like I remember in Tulane, you caught a deep pass from Brian in the dome in 2007.
Great ball.
And yeah, it was a great ball. And that was the first time for me that said, like, man, we can win this game. I know Matt Forte went nuts, but I was like, we can win this game that day. And then Brian, I remember you hurt your shoulder at McNeese in '09 and you fought through it and you finished the game and just came up a little bit short, but like you were hurt and you battled through it. I mean, there's memories that people have like that are different about you guys. Real quickly, Merrick, give me your greatest. I know it's probably really hard, but give me your best memory as a line player that you can look back on and say, that was my greatest memory as a player. And then Brian, you the same.
Oof. You know, that Tulane game was pretty special. Now that you bring that up, you know, not just I never got to play in the Dome in high school, and being a local kid, and that was the dream growing up in high school was to play in the Dome, go play state. And we never quite made it there. We had a great team our senior year, but came up short to Tommy Connors and Shaw, of course. But man, going to play in the Superdome in 2007 with a game that had a back like Matt Forte, and I think Selfo was there at the time. Actually,
he was the quarterback.
He was Bob.
Yeah. Well, his son was a quarterback. Yeah.
I think Anthony was the quarterback.
Anthony was quarterback. Yeah. And that was just a special deal for us, man, because we had not quite yet made our landmark win over an FBS team yet. And at halftime, man, it really smelled like that was going to be it. Like we were going to win this game. And, you know, we ran off that field at halftime and our fans were going crazy. And it's just like, man, this is going to be it. And we played a great game. I don't know how many yards Brian threw for, but he threw for a lot. And I had a lot of receiving yards, one touchdown, and, you know, being a part of that game, especially seeing what Matt Forte did. I mean, I think he had 305 rushing yards against us, you know, leading the country. Then he goes to the league and just has a Hall of Fame career almost. It's just that was a really special game just because it was such a it really wasn't even on our radar that we could pull something like that off in 2007. And we came so close to doing it. It's like, man, anything really is possible with this program. Like we can compete with just about anybody. So, you know, we're still searching for that first FBS win. And it's going to be super special when it happens. But for me, that was as close as we ever got. And it was a pretty awesome feeling, especially to do it in the Superdome. I tell my girls all the time when we pass, I got two daughters, and we'll go to New Orleans and they see the Superdome. I'm like, you know, Daddy caught a touchdown in that building right there. They're like, really? I'm like, oh yeah. So that was a really cool. You
had 6 for 117 and a touchdown.
There you go.
Brian was 31 of 47, 278 and 2 touchdowns.
I think the receiving stat line was a little more impressive, but depends on who you ask.
Hey, Forte had 40 carries for 303 yards and 5 touchdowns.
I was close. I thought it was 305, but 303. That's about right.
For me, Robbie, man, I appreciate that big time about the McNeese deal because that hurt like hell. It really did. And I had no idea that it was going to feel like that after the fact. But anyway, one of my other best friends, he played for McNeese, never beat him. So that one definitely hurt. But, yeah, like Merrick said, the best memory playing in the Dome, Louisiana boy, a lot of Louisiana guys playing. And we drew it up. I remember the safety, he was number 33, played a certain coverage at a certain on second and short. And Condell was like, listen, we're going to run Merrick on a double move. Don't mess it up. Don't screw it up because, I'm going to dial this thing up. All you got to do is get it there. And, like, that's a lot of pressure, fellas. I don't know if you know that because, like, this guy is stiff as hell. Like, it's coming. He calls it. And obviously the ball was well placed right in the middle. He runs down there. We try to celebrate. He jukes out of the way. I try to jump on him. I fall and bust my ass and kind of.
I forgot about that.
But no, I
forgot about that.
Incredible memory, man.
That was pretty good.
We've got a ton. Merrick and I've got a ton of great memories on and off the field. So,
all right,
it was a hell of a run for sure.
That's it. Well, guys, thank y'all for being with us. It means a lot. I think y'all shared a lot of good stories, and Lion fans will take this one and listen to this, and they'll think back about those great moments and those history times that they're going to, that stick with people forever. So we appreciate you guys coming on. Merrick Lanaux, Brian Babin, former Lion greats, spending some time with us tonight. Thank you guys for being a part of it with us this week. As always, line up, guys.
Absolutely.
Thanks, man. Thanks
appreciate you guys.
Y'all been doing a long time. I appreciate the coverage y'all do, man.
Really thank you guys. Appreciate y'all. All right. That's Brian and Merrick stepping with us.
Let's take a quick break, Bobby, and we'll
go ahead, Mark.
Come back on the other side right after this timeout.
One thing my dad always said was do the right thing. In any situation, whether it came with a customer or dealing with our staff, is just do the right thing. And that's what I've tried to do. Whether it's purchasing a new vehicle, whether it be repairing their current vehicle, whether it be getting accessories for the vehicle they have, it's just being able to provide our customers with a first-class experience and a pain-free experience. That's something that we've always done here and something we're very proud of. That's a part of who we are every day.
All right, welcome back. It's now time to take an in-depth look at Lion football. We're going to be Lions are on bye next week, so we're going to be doing our some basketball previews next week on the pod. Talking with some of the basketball coaches for Southeastern men and women's basketball as they get ready to tip off their season in the month of November. So it's exciting to go. We'll be continuing this on as we go through that season and talking Lion athletics as we go into the winter months here as fall just kind of getting going here in Southeast Louisiana. So, guys, obviously, if you haven't heard the Lions, this podcast usually hits the airways on Wednesday, so you're going to have about 24 hours till the Lions are going to be playing some football. The game Thursday, this game has been moved from Saturday to Thursday against Northwestern State in Natchitoches. Obviously, the terrible tragedy of the Northwestern State football player who was murdered. That was the result of the game last week with Nichols being canceled in Thibodaux, rightfully so. And then this game has been moved because the young student athlete's wake is going to be, and funeral is in the state of Texas on Friday and Saturday. So a number of Northwestern players will be making the road trip over to the state of Texas to the Austin area to take part in his services. So
young man Ronnie Caldwell, the young man for Northwestern State. No, obviously tragedy, no question. And our hearts, prayers go out. The thoughts and prayers go out to their community.
Yeah, and it's I know Alan, you talked to Coach Self a little bit about last night on the show or Monday, really. It's tough. I mean, now we can say this now. We learned about this as a possibility on Sunday around lunchtime. So the coaching staff has known since the weekend that this was going to happen. So they've been preparing accordingly. Another tough loss at Lamar, 0-7, guys. It's really not much else to say. It's kind of the same old song and dance that we've been talking about for the last few weeks. Defensive touchdowns, scoring on turnovers. I guess you could say the kicking game was a little bit better this week. Not punting. Punting's been fantastic, but field goal was a little bit better this week. Defense had its moments, but defense only gave up 23 points. They had the scoop and score fumble that resulted in a touchdown, but 23 points given up. You can win with those kind of situations, and they shut them out in the second half. And so, look, 3 turnovers. Defense was put in a tough spot. So, look, I mean, this line offense is a mess, guys. There's no doubt about it. It's got some major question marks. And look, the season's over. You got 4 games left to try to right the ship in the best way possible. Mark, we'll start with you. you're starting to, and I know fans are doing this, so I'm not gonna. I know people are doing this, so for me to say this is not some mystery, but now you're looking to say like, okay, what's going to be back next year of what's here? Because I know those Merrick and Brian were talking about the portal. We know about the portal transfers. Who's coming back? Who's going to leave? What do we bring in? What pieces remain? And how do we piece this back together? Mark, your thoughts on Lamar and turning to Northwestern next week?
Well, it is what it is. I mean, it's been a rough year. And again, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, obviously, you can't turn the football over, and I don't know that I've ever seen a football team give up 4 defensive scores over 5 weeks in 4 different games, and they've all been crucial turnovers that have led directly to losses, and or you can point to them anyway. And certainly that happened Saturday. And don't forget, right before the scoop and score, you get a touchdown call back. Rodeo Graham has a long run called back due to a hold, and a couple plays later, they get the scoop and score. And so it's really a 14-point swing in that football game. But my thing, I look at it, it's an offensive issue, and it has been all year. This team's averaging under 20 points a game. When's the last time that's happened? I think you got to go all the way back to 2012, and then before that, 2010. I don't even know if it was that few. I have to go look at the stats. But the offensive line really, honestly, has been the disappointment. And again, you return basically 6 starters from a team that had a couple of injuries a year ago. You do lose Dom Serapiglia, but you've got a lot of experience and a lot of depth on the offensive line. They just haven't performed to up to the standard that they have set previously. And I know that's been a big disappointment. It's a young wide receiver staff that really hasn't developed like we thought they might. There's a couple of young guys on here have a lot of talent, and obviously you've had Maurice Massey hasn't played, so that's been an issue, although he did play this week. The quarterback situation, that's been a juggle. I mean, you come out of camp with no defined starter, so I don't know if there's any confidence developed in that position. And that's been allowed to kind of stagnate a little bit. And we just haven't run the football. So, it's an offense that has started to get clicking here the last few weeks as far as yardage. But again, you go back to South Alabama, you got a chance to go up 14-0. You fumble a football, 7-0, could have been 14-0, but you fumble a ball at the 1-yard line. And it's been turnover after turnover, penalty after penalty. And that's why this team's 0-7.
Yeah, and when you think back to when Coach Selfo and Stevens have had success with multiple quarterbacks, you knew who the starter was. In 2019, they played Cole and they played Chasen, but Chasen Virgil was the starter for the Lion football team. Last year, you played Cephas and you played Eli. Cephas was the starter of the football team, and that was that galvanizing effort was around that notion. And Eli, was a vital part in the success last year, as was Cole, obviously, in 2019. But it really hasn't been as defined, I think, to the public, in my view, as it was in those years. And maybe it's just because none of the 2 guys were really taking that reign and going. So it's just been a mess. And it's been Alan, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, ultimately, look, 3 weeks in a row, we've had more total yards than the opponent. In 2 of those games, we had 100 yards more than the other opponent. We're playing good defense, especially in the second half. I think we've given up 1 touchdown in the last 3 games in the second half. We've been really good on defense, but we've been turning the ball over. And I've been saying this all year. It's not just the turnovers. This team makes losing plays. There's teams that win games that you're kind of not supposed to win because they make those 1, 2, or 3 winning plays in a game. This team doesn't do that. And it's really frustrating because, we just talked to Merrick and Brian, and look, there was a couple of those teams back in the early days that were bad. I mean, the personnel wasn't good. We had good players, but the overall, the depth of personnel wasn't good.
Bad.
This team's not bad. This is not a bad football team. They just don't win. And they make plays. I don't know if it's a leadership deal. I go back to this. This is the first year that we have not had the same captains for every game. We're running different captains out there every game. Now, what does that mean? I don't know, but does that mean that there's not defined captains on this team? Is there not defined leadership? Because ultimately, I think I saw one of the former players put something on Twitter that said, this team doesn't hate to lose, and I think they want to win, but they don't hate to lose, and they're just not making enough winning plays. They're actually making losing plays. When you give up defensive touchdowns in 4 out of 5 games, and you lose in every single one of those games, every single one of those 5 games, you had the football in the fourth quarter with a chance to win, and when you're giving up defensive points, you go to UIW, you give up 9 points defensively, you're not going to win. And it's really frustrating. It's been a very frustrating season for everybody. I know Coach Selfo is saying, all the right things of, this team's continuing to practice hard and, I like this team. I like their makeup, but ultimately it's got to be frustrating for him and frustrating for this coaching staff as well. I don't think anybody inside that building, outside that building, the national writers, anybody saw this coming.
I mean, nobody did. I mean, we didn't, certainly. I mean, we've talked about it. You can go back to our first podcast. We're thinking this team might have a chance to be better than last year. And that certainly hasn't been the case. But this team does have talent. And under no
we could have won every one of our FCS games. Every one.
Under no circumstance should this team be 0-7. I mean, should we be 7-0? No. I mean, you have 2 FBS teams, and you go to Eastern Washington with a game you could have won, but you certainly could be, if you talked about making winning plays versus losing plays. If you make winning plays, this team could be 5-2 right now. You're very much in the hunt, and a chance you're probably ranked in the top 10, and chance to maybe get a seed in the playoffs. I mean, that's kind of the difference in losing plays and winning plays. So,
well, I'll just say this: UIW is, what are they, Mark? 6-1? Are they 5-1? Whatever they are.
Well, whatever they are, but they're not as good.
They're top 5 in the country.
Right.
They are not more talented and better than this football team we have. I'm just telling you. I was there. I saw it with my eyes. But they're making plays to win games, and they played some tight ones, and at the end of the game, they make plays. We haven't been able to do that. So I guess my point is the gap. It's not like the gap all of a sudden in 1 year has got really wide on us. We're just not making the plays that we're used to making.
Perception is – go ahead, Robbie.
Well, Harris, I'll jump to you in a minute, but, I'm a big believer in this too. You go back to last year. If you watch the UL Lafayette game and you watch the Fort Atlanta game, this team looked way better in the 2 FBS games than that team. That, Lafayette, we kind of had a chance, there was a flash of we got a chance to get in the game, but you never felt like the game was close outside of one touchdown getting called back that CJ Turner caught a ball, right? But I never really felt like the game was close. I felt like they always had the upper hand. They always had control of the game. They were better than us. Florida Atlantic was just a train wreck. Not to harp on the schedule again, but maybe you just needed that Central Connecticut State game where you could just go out there and just, beat the brakes off somebody that was just way, way better than. And people might say, oh, Houston Baptist was that game or Houston Christian was that game. Maybe, but look, there's no excuse. This team has made losing plays to lose games, but if we're playing Eastern Washington at home last year after Florida Atlantic instead of Central Connecticut, does that change the trajectory of the season in 2022? Maybe.
Momentum is real. Confidence is real.
If you would have played a Division II opponent, or I'm not trying to say play D2s or weaken the schedule. I'm not trying to say that, right? Because I know it's a big thing for some folks on here that we want to play a good schedule, and I do too. But if you would just flip flop those 2 games and put Central Connecticut State in there after South Alabama at home, and you would have put in Eastern Washington, whether it be in Hammond or send that team to Cheney last year after playing Florida Atlantic, there's no telling if that team would have won the conference championship last year. You just don't know. That team had a game where they were way, way better than their opponent, Central Connecticut State. You almost was able to just roll the ball out there and win, and then you won, scored 70 points, and they had so much confidence, and then you kind of make that play at the end to beat UIW, and then just took off from there, and it went all the way to a conference title. So look, things happen for a reason, and you can't change the schedule. I think the people that made this schedule are not here anymore, but this was an awful schedule in terms of how it was put together. In my opinion, it was awful. And you got to have more thought about these things. Look, I'm not a schedule maker. I know the guy who's people doing it now are going to have a different viewpoint on it, and I'm excited about their envisionment for the schedule. But you really got to try to say to yourself, with the way this is now, if you're gonna have to go to, because the conference schedule just flip flops every year, right? But if you're going to be having to go to Commerce and San Antonio in the same year from here on out, which would be in 2025, I guess, if things hold true, you can't schedule a flight FCS game. You can't even schedule a flight FBS game. If you get one flight a year, you got to save it for one of those two games, in my opinion. If you want to be legitimate playoff team that wants to keep playing, because that's just too much in these conference games to have to, take those two. I mean, you got to fly to UIW. It's got to become a priority.
And I agree to that because there's a lot of good FCS programs that it's within 4 and 5 hour drive. I mean, look at the SoCon conference, look at Central Arkansas. Getting some of those teams on the conference or on the schedule would be beneficial not only for traveling purposes, but also it's good competition football. So you're not scheduling as Central Connecticut State. You're not having to fly out there, weaker competition, but it's a bus trip and it's good for points. When you schedule a Sanford or a Mercer or a Campbell or a UCA, or even a Chattanooga who's lighting it up in their conference, the SoCon. So I do agree with you there, Robbie.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know. I always think back to, hey, look, if we didn't fly to Central Connecticut State in 2021 and we found a game local, go to somebody else, and you could have used that flight to fly to UIW that year. Would that have made a difference in that game? Who knows? I don't know. But it was late in the year. You had a 10-hour bus ride. You lose in a close game. I mean, look, I'm not a guy that makes excuses, but I've always said in life, whether it be golfing or whatever in life, there's excuses are not to be taken. No one needs to make excuses. And coaches say there's no excuses, but there's also reality. And so to me, I just think that I know the thing with Eastern Washington was well, it's this year or never. And say, hey, look, we want to play you, but maybe it's not now, right? It was just a poor execution. And I just really think that there's more to this season that's made this team struggle. But that was just a really, it put the guys in a tough situation. I feel like I really believe that. And I'll stand by that. I mean, you guys can disagree or agree, but I think it put the guys in a tough situation to start that way with those games.
Well, it set the tone, no question. But bottom line is, you've had 3 home games against teams you should beat, and you don't make plays. And
I agree with that.
One of them you just didn't show up ready to play, which may go back to your point. You're coming off 2 FBS in Eastern Washington, and you're not ready to play against the Houston Christian.
I think we thought we could roll the ball out there against HCU.
I agree with that.
Look, listen, HCU's definitely improved. I mean, they just shut out Prairie View this past week. I mean, they're not what they were where they were just awful a few years ago. I mean, they're improved and they have a new coach and they're playing better.
Also, this Lamar team late, so.
Yeah, and here's the deal. You got to beat Northwestern on Thursday. I mean, if we don't, guys, just get ready. 0-11 is real. I mean, if we don't win, these next few games, I mean, we can win. We've been saying this for last few weeks, but I mean, we could have won our last 7 or 8 games, and every game that we're playing is winnable. But eventually, you got to win one. And this is a program that we have absolutely dominated. I mean, they have not beat us since 2011.
12 in a row. Yeah.
No, 13 because
13 in a row
because we played them twice
Yeah.
in the 1 year.
In 2021.
So the point is this is a program that we have dominated. We got to go up there and win this game. And look, who knows? You win that one, you win your last 4, then you feel a lot better about this thing. At the end of the season. But right now, we got to figure out a way to get a victory because it's crazy. But we've lost 8 in a row. You go back to the Sanford game in the playoffs last year. But winning is contagious. But what else is losing can be contagious. And we have to do something to get out of this funk.
Well, don't forget.
You make a really good point. Yeah, I mean, the schedule just gets
Tulane, Southern Miss, South Dakota State, Eastern Washington, and Tarleton open next year. So. That's what you're looking forward to coming up.
But what do we? I mean, that's just unbelievable. Why are we doing? I mean, that's just unbelievable. But that's the schedule for next year. I mean, you might say, "Oh, we'll roll the ball out and play anybody," but come on, guys. I mean, that's just.
There's a reason that LSU's playing Army this week. there's a reason that they play. There's a
Grambling.
reason that there's a reason they played Grambling. I mean, there's just a reason. I mean, you have to have some of those games. You're dealing with amateur athletes that are in school that are trying to pass classes. I mean, every single week cannot be a grinder. I mean, there's got to be some type of, game built in there that you're going to just win.
I agree with that. And you got to have a delicate balance. And, Alan, you made a good point that we could be sitting here at Thanksgiving and you could win your last 4 and have the same record this team had in 2018. And going into the offseason, I'll be disappointed to think of what could have been, but I'll feel a lot different than I did riding home with you guys from Thibodaux in 2018 when they, basically shut us out, beat us by, half 100. And we had the same record. So it's all going to be about the finishing point at the end of the season. And, look, I mean, it's been a rough ride. The players are playing hard. I mean, you can tell these players are playing hard.
Yeah, they had to shut it down.
They're playing their tails off. The coaches are coaching their tails off because the way that first half ended against Lamar, a team that quit on their coaches, quit on their teammates. All 3 of you guys, Harris, Alan, and Mark, you guys can attest to this. If that team would have quit on each other and their coaches,
they got rolled.
They would have gotten rolled.
Yeah.
They would have gotten 60-0, and but they shut them out in the second half. They found a way to get back in the
Same
game.
Thing at UIW.
Same thing at UIW. Yeah, I mean, so sometimes this has happened in history. I tried to look up some of this stuff this week, but there's teams that have had high expectations that have come into a season and have just absolutely laid an egg in terms of getting it done, losing close games, just can't find a way to get over the hump. But 0-11 would be, you kind of laugh at that, but 0-7 was laughed at 3 weeks ago. So, that would be a bad situation for this program heading into the offseason with what comes next year.
Yep.
Well, guys, again, thanks a lot for being with us. Appreciate it. I want to thank Brian Babin, Merrick Lanaux, our guests this week. Lions play Northwestern State Thursday night, 7:00 kickoff in Natchitoches. Going to be a big game for this program to try to get their first win of the season, as are the Demons. They'll be playing with passion, trying to win for their fallen brother who had been, obviously lost his life a couple weeks back. So it's gonna be an emotional game in Natchitoches. Lions are gonna be a part of it on Thursday night. So don't forget to turn down the sound of the set and listen to the network as the Lions take on the Demons on Thursday night. I want to thank again Brian Babin and Merrick Lanaux, former Lions, for joining us tonight. For Alan Waddell, Mark Willoughby, and Harris Beal, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week. Line up, everybody.
Line up.
Line up.